Hey, Chris Scott here. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to use CBD for alcohol withdrawal. So you probably noticed that lately there's been a bit of a CBD mania and everyone's talking about CBD for everything. And there are a lot of potential uses for it, but I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it as it pertains to alcohol withdrawal specifically. But before I begin, I just want to mention that I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. And if you have severe alcohol withdrawal involving symptoms such as seizures or hallucinations, don't turn to CBD. Go find a doctor. They'll probably prescribe benzodiazepines. Now, CBD can be very useful for post-acute withdrawal, which is caused by imbalance in your body and brain that is caused by alcohol and also by skewered neurotransmitter and hormone levels caused by prolonged drinking. CBD can help reduce the anxiety, insomnia, and restlessness and other such symptoms that happen to a lot of people after they quit drinking and last for months or even for years. And CBD can also be useful for mild to moderate alcohol withdrawal involving those same similar symptoms of anxiety and insomnia and low-level depression. So the first question is, what is CBD? Well, CBD is short for cannabidiol, and it's a natural compound found in both industrial hemp and marijuana. So I'm not recommending that you go out and get marijuana, unless of course you live in a state where it's legal, but we're actually going to discuss why CBD itself is probably better for alcohol withdrawal than marijuana. Now, our bodies contain endocannabinoids in numerous organs and brain regions. We actually have an endocannabinoid system that regulates things like pain and pleasure and appetite. And there have been studies done showing that CBD supplementation can improve numerous conditions by helping to restore balance to this endocannabinoid system. And so it's a little bit unclear as to whether we're directly supplying cannabinoids to our system or whether we're improving the sensitivity of our existing endocannabinoid receptors. But either way, CBD is legal. It's not psychoactive. It leads at most to feelings of relaxation or sleepiness. So when you take CBD, you don't get high. I've heard some people say that they feel like a body buzz with a clear mind, and so it will not make you unable to function, unlike THC, which is the compound that's found in higher percentages in marijuana and in a very, very low level in industrial hemp. But CBD actually has anti-addictive properties. I suppose you could call it a drug, but we wouldn't consider it addictive. Interestingly, and we will explain why this is the case, CBD actually seems to promote recovery from addiction and even has been shown to help people with compulsive behaviors stop engaging in those compulsive behaviors. It might do this by reducing inflammation in the brain. Let's review our endocannabinoid system really quickly. So I mentioned that this system is involved in regulating pain and pleasure and memory and appetite. Now, importantly, it's also involved in regulating our immune system responses such as inflammation. So if you've been following Fit Recovery or my videos for a while, you've probably heard me talk about the importance of reducing inflammation in order to promote alcohol recovery. And I think that that is the best way to understand why CBD can be so useful for alcohol recovery, because we have this internal endocannabinoid system and we can make use of CBD right away to reduce inflammation in the body and in the brain. And as we will see, studies have shown that doing so can result in a decrease in addictive behavior, a decrease in symptoms such as anxiety, and just a better sense of general well-being. Now, I want to give a brief overview of alcohol withdrawal, which is actually a complicated subject that I've covered in several videos, and you might have read about it in my articles on fit-recovery.com. But here are some points as far as CBD is concerned and how it can help. When you go through alcohol withdrawal, what ends up happening is you have a deficiency of GABA, and that's the brain's primary calming neurotransmitter. Now, GABA exists in a balance with another neurotransmitter called glutamate. Glutamate is the primary stimulating or excitatory neurotransmitter. It increases electrical activity in the brain. So when the alcohol wears off and you're going through withdrawal, you have a deficiency of GABA and too much glutamate in your brain. So as you probably know, if you've ever experienced this state, it's hard to relax and you feel like you're hypervigilant. Your reflex responses go off a bit too quickly. You feel stressed out, panicked, maybe even paranoid. And so this is a situation that CBD can help with. I'll explain that in a minute. But we also have another problem, which is that acetaldehyde, which is the number one toxic byproduct of alcohol, has caused all of these pro-inflammatory compounds, including a compound called cytokines, to increase. And so your system is out of balance. Your brain chemistry is out of balance, and your body chemistry is out of balance. There have actually been studies showing that inflammatory cytokines can actually block receptors meant for feel-good chemicals such as serotonin. So it prevents your feel-good chemicals from actually plugging into the right receptors and making you feel better. So now with post-acute withdrawal, you also have a similar situation. It's not quite as bad as acute withdrawal, but you end up with symptoms such as anxiety, insomnia, depression, and anhedonia, which means pleasure deafness. These are symptoms of long-term imbalance that are not quite as extreme as acute withdrawal, but they can still be pretty bad. And after I quit drinking, it took me about 6 months to start discovering the supplements that would really help me. And honestly, CBD wasn't a thing years ago when I quit drinking. I wish it had been. But these symptoms, the anxiety, not being able to sleep, feeling kind of bummed out, and not being able to take pleasure in everyday things, can really be crippling and lead a lot of people back to drinking. So I want to discuss why CBD can help with these issues. Now, the first is that CBD directly reduces inflammation. So it reduces the pro-inflammatory compounds in the body and brain. And so when it does this, it removes a major roadblock to the production of feel-good chemicals. And so as I mentioned, the pro-inflammatory compounds can actually go into your brain. Cytokines can pass through the blood-brain barrier, and they can keep your feel-good chemicals from properly functioning. Now, CBD also repairs oxidative stress in a similar way as antioxidants. So you can think of it as kind of a super antioxidant, and it's been shown to reverse glutamate toxicity. So by glutamate toxicity, I just mean that excess glutamate that causes that feeling of hypervigilance and panic that you feel when you are in a state of alcohol withdrawal. And at the same time, as I mentioned, CBD directly restores natural endocannabinoids. There was a study that found that heavy drinkers, people who had drank for months or years, actually completely extinguished their levels of natural endocannabinoids. Now, CBD also improves the body's response to stress. And so I've heard a lot of people who have written to me after I wrote an article on CBD for alcohol withdrawal on my website, and a lot of people commented and said, I've been taking CBD at night, but I noticed that I'm more calm during the day. The cool thing about CBD is it's not one of those things that, you take just for immediate symptom relief. It actually has a long-term rebalancing effect for your system. Now, last year, I wrote an article about alcoholic rats who had been given CBD, and we had bred these rats to be dependent on the equivalent of a fifth for a human of vodka each day. So these were some heavy drinking rats. They were injected with CBD for a week, and these rats, I think it was like 80% of them, voluntarily chose water over alcohol for the next 5 months. So that's pretty amazing. And CBD, once the rats were tested, CBD was found to have reduced the biomarkers for inflammation in the body and brain. So you can see this article in the Journal of Neuropsychopharmacology. This study really kicked off the enthusiasm for using CBD for addictive disorders such as alcohol addiction and opiate addiction. And since then, thousands and thousands of people have, maybe millions at this point, have used CBD with success in helping to feel better and to avoid relapse after quitting drinking or as they quit drinking or other addictive issues. Now, how does CBD reduce alcohol craving? So this is kind of a recap, but as we've said, it reverses high glutamate levels in the brain. Glutamate being the stress chemical, the neurotransmitter that increases electrical activity in the brain. So it evens out those high levels. It decreases inflammation. And as that rat study shows, high levels of inflammation in the body and the brain can lead to relapse because it means that your brain chemistry is not properly balanced. And CBD restores endocannabinoid and CB1 receptor function. That's simply the receptor that CBD binds to and that the endocannabinoid system relies on in order for you to make use of these cannabinoids. And so you need to be able to make use of your natural cannabinoids, and by taking CBD, you are improving your body's ability to make use of the endocannabinoids that you make yourself. So let's talk about CBD versus marijuana for alcohol withdrawal. Now, there is a group called Marijuana Maintenance that's been around for a long time, and they do promote the use of marijuana for alcohol recovery, and they have some decent success rates, but I would say that CBD is a safer option. I would actually say that the reason marijuana maintenance works is not just because you get a substitute for alcohol in the form of THC, which gets you high, but also because by consuming marijuana, you're getting CBD. But I would say that it's probably better, to get CBD because A, it's legal, it's more widely available. Now, obviously that would not apply if you live in a state where marijuana is legal. But CBD is not psychoactive. So, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be high all the time. It's actually maybe a blessing for me that I never responded particularly well to THC. It always made me kind of paranoid. But CBD does not cause the anxiety that THC can. In fact, it reduces anxiety. A lot of people who smoke marijuana trying to relax, ironically, end up just being panicked and paranoid. And this can have something to do with their biochemical predisposition for those things. So I would say that if you find that you are anxious often, or you have you have an inability to relax, then you would want to avoid THC, and CBD would probably be a better fit for you. So you've probably heard that in these states where we have these super high THC waxes and resins and oils and vape pens and all of that, we find that people are actually overdosing on THC. They're not dying, but it's a very unpleasant experience. And so not that THC doesn't have any benefits, because it absolutely does for some people. But I would say that in the context of alcohol recovery, you would want to go with something that is anti-addictive rather than pro-addictive. And CBD has the benefits for relaxation and for insomnia relief that people have in the past turned to marijuana for. It's a cool thing that we've finally isolated this compound and made it available without the other risks of being too high to function, or getting potentially addicted to THC, or increasing anxiety levels. So what are the best ways to take CBD? Well, there are a number of ways. There's CBD oils out there. There's CBD vape pens, CBD gummies, and CBD edibles. And I've tried all of these so far. And, I'm a fan of CBD oil. I'll discuss why in a second. Vape pens are interesting. I typically don't like to inhale things into my lungs. Gummies are also great. I found some good gummies, but I don't like regularly getting sugar all over my teeth. I'm worried I'm going to get a cavity. I also don't like eating sugar in the first place. Ironically, sugar can lead to worse alcohol cravings, potentially not in the dosage that you would get in a gummy, but just in principle, I like to avoid sugar. And so that's for the same reason I tend to avoid edibles. But these are the ways that people typically take CBD. But I've found that CBD oil is the best way to and the safest way to get CBD. And CBD Pure is my favorite brand for CBD oil. I've tried a bunch of them. They have a very strong offline presence as well. So if you're interested in trying CBD, I'd say definitely give CBD Pure a shot. There's a link and a coupon in the description for this video. So how do you take CBD? Well, it's pretty simple, and it's kind of up to you. There's no best way or time of day to take it. I tend to take one dropper before bed. And as I said, I'm in my 5th year alcohol free. I'm taking CBD for the health benefits, to reduce inflammation, and I find that it helps me sleep deeper. I've actually found that if I take a dropper before bed, I can get a little bit less sleep, but I sleep deeper. So I typically need like 8 to 8.5 hours of sleep. Ever since I've been taking CBD, I need more like 7.5, and I feel even more rested. I also find that my dreams are a bit more vivid. I occasionally take CBD after my workouts. I find, as I said, that it goes really nicely with my post-workout routine of getting in the steam room. I'm lucky that the gym I go to has a nice steam room. But I find that it's a very synergistic combination to take CBD with the steam room and cold shower. I also take it as needed for extra relaxation. So it definitely just has a smooth sailing effect, kind of like a natural chill pill that doesn't have any of those toxic side effects that you would get from taking a Xanax or from drinking alcohol. Regardless of what brand you choose for CBD, make sure that it is reputable. This is important for a couple reasons. You want to avoid, obviously, low quality that would simply be ineffective if you took it. You want to avoid brands with fillers in them. You want to avoid brands with contaminants. And you definitely want to avoid brands with hidden ingredients. And so by law, a CBD product has to contain less than 0.3% THC. That's the amount that's considered legally acceptable for industrial hemp. And just as a comparison here, most marijuana products, whether they're edibles or strains of marijuana, tend to contain somewhere in the 3 to 10% THC range. CBD products that contain less than 0.3% THC effectively contain no THC. Although if I had a job where I was tested, these testing protocols are getting more and more precise. If I was tested for THC, I would definitely talk to an expert or talk to the company before using any of these CBD products, because there will be minuscule amounts of THC, but they will not have any effect. They will not get you high. It's like a very tiny amount. I've heard of some people taking non-reputable brands of CBD, and it ends up having way more THC than they expected, especially CBD oils that are extracted from marijuana instead of from hemp. Now, I want to quickly review some of the research that's been done on the use of CBD for addictive disorders. The first is that alcohol-dependent people have a severely diminished prevalence of CB1 receptors in the brain. I think I mentioned that study before. It was also found that they have fewer endocannabinoids in their body. So you can see why CBD supplementation would help people who are alcohol dependent. It's been found that CBD reverses glutamate toxicity in the brain. This is because it binds to CB1 receptors. It blocks glutamate from wreaking havoc and making you feel panicked. And it reduces oxidative stress in a similar way as antioxidants. An analysis of studies found that CBD seems to have direct effects on addictive behaviors. It tends to reduce relapse. It tends to make people more calm and even-keeled. And so directly and indirectly, it ends up having an anti-addictive property. CBD has been found to reduce cigarette consumption in tobacco smokers, and so it even works against the most addictive drugs such as nicotine. It reduces the reward-facilitating effects of morphine, another highly addictive drug. And CBD has been found to actually reduce cravings for cannabis following heavy usage, which is really interesting and counterintuitive. You would think, how could you possibly fight marijuana addiction with a marijuana compound? Well, it turns out that CBD, it has a balancing relationship with THC in a lot of strains, but as I said, we have a lot of new strains now where the THC levels have been artificially jacked up through selective breeding. CBD itself can actually be useful in treating cannabis addiction. Now, as I mentioned before, no adverse side effects have been reported with very high doses of CBD. Let's talk again about inflammation and mental health, because as I said, the biggest benefit of using CBD for alcohol withdrawal and alcohol recovery is that it reduces inflammation. So what are the links between inflammation and mental health? Well, anti-inflammatory drugs have been found to actually improve the symptoms of clinical depression. There was a study done. They gave people who were clinically depressed, instead of antidepressants, they gave them strong anti-inflammatory drugs, which obviously not everyone wants to take. There are reasons not to be taking them. However, in this scenario, they were used just to prove the principle that there was a link between inflammation and depression, and it was found that these anti-inflammatory drugs did reduce the symptoms of depression. In a much simpler experiment, people with depression were told to eat only whole foods for 3 months, and the people who did this experienced more improvement in symptoms than people who only received social support. So I find this to be very interesting. It could be that the people who only ate whole foods ate less sugar. Sugar and processed flour, those are known to increase inflammation in the body, and they're also associated with increased addictive behavior. Sugar itself is a drug, but when you're eating whole foods, you're generally reducing inflammation in your body compared to someone who's eating packaged foods. I would love to see a study done of people who go and receive social support from a program like AA versus people who go on a diet that's anti-inflammatory and who actively try to reduce levels of inflammation in their body, I would bet that the people who take this proactive physical approach to reducing inflammation and fixing their bodies and brains would have more improvement in the agitation and irritability that people with alcohol with post-acute withdrawal tend to experience. Now, another study found that magnesium, which is a very inexpensive mineral that's known to decrease inflammation in the body, it's actually involved in hundreds of bodily processes, that it's as effective as SSRIs in treating clinical depression. Now, we have this new area of research, emerging research called psychobiotics, in which scientists have been exploring the role of the microbiome in regulating inflammation levels and supporting the production of hormones and neurotransmitters that you need to feel good. I don't know the exact effects of CBD on the microbiome. I think that would be a really interesting area of study. Perhaps there have been studies done on it, but I haven't yet seen it. But I can say anecdotally that someone emailed me, they had read my article and gotten some CBD oil, and they said that their anxiety went away. But not only that, they had a sort of autoimmune issue. They were having a lot of issues with their digestive system, and these issues went away after they started taking CBD. The main point here is that to improve your alcohol recovery, to improve how you feel, and to decrease your chances of relapse, you'll want to proactively reduce inflammation. And CBD, I think, is a great way to do it, but it should be one of a number of approaches that you have. You'll want to use vitamins and minerals, make sure you're getting enough good fats, omega-3 fatty acids, and amino acids to give your body the precursors and the coenzymes that you need to restore balance and produce all of those feel-good chemicals and hormones that you need. Diet changes can also be very helpful, as we saw in that study where people who were depressed, who ate whole foods for 3 months, started feeling better. Diet changes can absolutely help in the same exact way for the same exact reason in alcohol recovery. And adequate rest and sleep might actually be the most important part of alcohol recovery, because if you're not sleeping, you're not restoring your brain, you're not restoring your body. You need to be able to repair every cell in your body after you quit drinking. And I would say that one of the best uses of CBD is to encourage restful sleep. And I used to take a sleeping pill after I quit drinking, and I found that CBD is so much gentler and I feel so much better. I used to feel groggy after the detox center that I went to gave me, I think it was trazodone, and I felt unrested after I woke up in the morning. And it's the total opposite with CBD. I just feel more balanced. Recovery from alcohol addiction is a holistic process. It's not a pill for an ill type of situation. And so you want to make sure you're surrounded by awesome people. And exercise can help to rewire your brain and reduce inflammation. Exercise is, if you know anything about my story, was my first original anti-relapse agent. And people who quit drinking tend to have what's called EDS, or endorphin deficiency syndrome, and it's one of the reasons for that anhedonia. By exercising daily, think of it as a sweat in a day, you can increase those levels of natural endorphins. And if you do all of these things, your chances of feeling better sooner and enjoying life without alcohol, and I would say life beyond alcohol, is much higher. So you also want to make sure you're building new neural pathways, and you can do this by choosing awesome new activities to supplant the time that you used to spend drinking alcohol. So you don't want to be sitting on your couch with a glass of water instead of a glass of wine. Alcohol recovery doesn't work that way. You need to be doing cool new stuff, figuring out what your purpose is, making use of the new energy levels that you have from reducing inflammation, and making positive changes in your lifestyle. So I wanted to keep this video pretty short, but thank you so much for watching. If you found it to be useful, then please share it with someone who needs it. It could be you. Perhaps you're the person who needs it, in which case I'm very glad that you found it. And if you do like it, then please give me a thumbs up and stay tuned for more. Thanks again for watching.